Hello everyone, welcome to my Resident Evil 2 Remake, hardcore difficulty, Claire 1 scenario, no damage, knife only, S plus walkthrough, and this is the laboratory area. And saying that intro alone took a lot of energy because this section drained me so much. I absolutely despise this whole entire section. The laboratory section on the A scenario is horrible. It's so bad. On the B scenario, it isn't too bad. And I was spending so much time trying to find a really consistent strategy to do this whole entire area, but every single time I would find a really consistent strategy, the game would just screw me, because this game is just not consistent in the slightest. And it's because of these inconsistencies in the mechanics, in the enemies, in the movement, and everything, that it just took me several days to figure out this whole entire section, to find a strategy that would be easy to replicate. But every single time, I would try to find these consistent strategies, the game would always try something different. This is the most inconsistent Resident Evil game on the planet. It might as well just be called Resident Inconsistency 2. I have never been screwed so much by a Resident Evil game in all my time as a Resident Evil player. And you can't even make the argument of, oh, you're doing a restricted run that doesn't exactly apply to the proper way to play a Resident Evil game. Because this game is designed for knife only. That's exactly what Capcom said. And the fact that they're saying that this game is designed for knife only, yet for some reason, the fundamental mechanics of Resident Evil 2 Remake screwed me more than anything else in this whole entire section, is just baffling to me. It's so baffling. The amount of times I would get screwed by the movement and the heavy animations in play, the amount of times I would get screwed by really awkward detection on the grabs, the amount of times I would get screwed by enemies doing the grabs on staircases and getting ridiculous speed boosts that would just allow them to catch up to me, the amount of times I would break my knife and I couldn't even sprint and the enemies have been able to get a free pass when it comes to attacking me. It was extreme. And right here, I'm doing something that might work for you, but it might also not work for you. I'm trying to take out that Ivy so that he doesn't become an issue later on, and he doesn't die when I do it like that because the Ivies are completely invincible unless you burn them, and of course I can't burn them because I don't have the grenade launcher. So I have to aim for the weak spots. But I get screwed by the knife's detection sometimes, and then I also get screwed by the fact that when the Ivies are rising off the ground, they don't flinch whatsoever when you expose their bulbs or just break them apart. There's just so much randomness in play with doing something like that. And it's going to happen with that same Ivy again later on, where I try to take him out again so that he's on the ground, but I get screwed by really bad detection on the knife, and he just gets a free passing grabbing me, and I have to waste a knife. Which is so unfair. And I rage quit on this whole entire section many, many times. I just got sick of having to repeat the exact same thing over and over again, that I just decided to go on to other games and just eventually come back to do this walkthrough. That's why you saw me upload videos of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, because I was actually enjoying that game. Unlike this game. And eventually, I got sick of hearing everything in this game. I got sick of all the audio in this game that would play every single time I had to replay this whole entire section, that I just decided to play this whole entire game muted. I didn't hear anything. I was instead relying upon music. I was playing music from actually good Resident Evil games, just so I could have the sanity necessary to do this whole entire video. And it definitely paid off. It was not only music from the Resident Evil games, I was hearing music from The Evil Within, I was hearing music from Call of Duty, I was hearing music from famous artists like Avenged Sevenfold, and also from Wedding Dress. And doing that just allowed me to maintain my sanity to make this stupid video. And by the way, right here, you have to make sure you don't sprint, because if you're sprinting when you reach a certain threshold of this room, this Licker will know exactly where you are, and he will attack you. Which I don't really understand why that is the case, it's really dumb. But since I've done it correctly, I'm going to take out these two Lickers, and there are also 3 zombies behind me, but they're just standing still. And the reason why they're standing still is because I didn't go to that half of the area before triggering the Lickers. If you go to that half of the area before triggering the Lickers, the zombies will attack you while you're attacking these Lickers. And I'm getting rid of these Lickers for 2 reasons. The first reason is that I'm going to be able to sprint through this whole entire room without any risk of being detected by these Lickers, because they will already be dead. The second reason is that the amount of knife hits it takes to actually kill Lickers is pretty consistent compared to the zombies. The zombies are so inconsistent with the amount of hits it takes from the knife to actually kill them, and the only thing that's even more inconsistent than that is the amount of knife hits it takes to actually dismember a limb. And that was getting me screwed so many times by one particular zombie, because I tried to take off his leg, and his leg would break off immediately, or it would just break off after a long duration, and he would be able to get a grab out, which was really dumb. And this room here is so stupid. I tried so many times to go back down the staircase after picking up the signal modulator. I was trying to do all these kind of tricks to get the zombies to change positions by using the loading doors to my advantage. I was trying to use the staircases to my advantage, but none of it was working. They would work consistently for a few attempts, and then in the later attempts, they wouldn't work at all. So I instead decided to just rush that whole entire room and just go back through the ivies, which is why I always take out this guy at the very beginning, and I try to take him out again, but unfortunately, I get screwed by really bad detection on the knife, so I have to waste my knife to break out of that grab, because if you don't break out of the ivies grabs, they will always instantly kill you. And that right there is just one of the many big issues that occurred when I was trying to record this video that wasn't even due to my own faults whatsoever. It was all the game's fault. It's stuff like that that really infuriates me about this particular Resident Evil game, because it happens so frequently, to such a great degree, that it's so hard to just laugh it off or just push it aside. The fact that people don't recognize these kind of issues with this game is just so baffling. It's staring you right in the face. It's right under your noses. How can people ignore those kind of issues and just laugh them off? If these don't identify as objective issues on the game's part, then those people are completely delusional. Those people are fake Resident Evil players. That's what I would call anyone who likes this game, and then they say it's better than every other Resident Evil game, and it's better than Resident Evil 7, and I only got one thing to say to those people. Better than the other Resident Evil games, my fucking ass. I just want to tell those people to screw off. I just want to tell those people to go and actually play a good Resident Evil game, and then come back and understand why this Resident Evil game is completely inferior to every other Resident Evil game out there. And if they still can't identify what defines a good Resident Evil game, then those people have no sense of imagination whatsoever. This game is so unimaginative in everything that it does. Nothing in it feels original. I already said this in one of my videos, that it feels so standardized in everything, and because of this standardization, it's just made this Resident Evil game so clunky in a lot of areas. And not just clunky, completely compromised. The amount of things that this Resident Evil game compromised when it comes to the guns, when it comes to the animations, when it comes to the feedback, when it comes to the enemies, when it comes to the bosses, when it comes to the hitboxes. It's extreme. And then you have this Resident Evil 2 Remake developer that's all like, I didn't want to let the fans down, so I'm really glad that we managed to make it without compromising anything. Without compromising anything? You've got to be kidding me right now. But back to the video. Right there, I'm trying to knife the Ivy's head, because when you knife them in the head when you're in the stealth profile, it does make them flinch consistently. Only when you knife the head. Whenever you knife the body, it's not consistent. So, obviously, it's going to work so much better as Claire compared to Leon, because Leon's knifing is absolute garbage, because he can't aim upward to save his life. But I'm trying to make sure that the Ivies are in the correct positions when I go to disperse his herbicide, so that I won't have to waste too much of my durability trying to paralyze them again. Because when the Ivies are on the ground, you can knife their weak spots, and that will delay the amount of time it takes for them to get up. So, I'm using this to my advantage to get out of here without any incident. And every time you pick up this chip, it's going to spawn this Ivy over here. But I'm just going to run past him. Sometimes he's very quick to respond to you, other times he isn't. It's kind of random. And then this guy's moving, so I'm going to hug the right-hand side, because the Ivies have so much range on their grabs, and they're way faster than the standard zombies. Heck, they're no different to the standard zombies in any regard. Why people consider the Ivy's design impressive is just a mystery I'll never understand. They literally feel no different to a standard zombie, aside from the fact that if you hit their weak spots, they actually flinch, and the fact that they have so much range on their grabs, they're incredibly fast, and they don't respond to the sprint counter whatsoever. You cannot use the sprint counter to your advantage when it comes to dealing with that enemy. And this enemy is so deceptive when it comes to hitting you at range, because of the fact that it leans forward and it can lean backwards and it takes these weird steps forward, it makes it hard to judge the distance the Ivy is from you. So, trying to anticipate when the Ivy will do the grab is made even harder because of those factors. And even when you do successfully anticipate it, if you're in any kind of room where you have your flashlight out, it's so hard to run past them because of how heavy the animations are when it comes to turning and when it comes to actually running past them. And all of this could easily be avoided if Capcom let you pull your knife out instantly, regardless of whether you had flashlight on or off. If that was the case, I wouldn't have too much of an issue with running past the ivies. Because when I'm running past the ivies, whenever I'm in that big botanical garden area, I can easily get past them. Because I don't have to worry about any turning animations. But the fact that I have to worry about that when I have my flashlight out is something that shouldn't even be a thing to consider. It's just a fault on Capcom's part. That's entirely the game's fault. You can't blame yourself for messing that up when the game doesn't let you pull out your knife instantly to control the loose nature of the movement. The movement on this game is honestly the worst movement system ever in the Resident Evil series. I get screwed more by the movement than by the enemies on this game. And that should never be the case. I mean, let's look at Resident Evil 6, for instance. Like, Resident Evil 6, the movement on that game is very loose, but you have all these different factors to control it. You have aiming, you have dodging, and once you have it nailed down, and you understand the movement system, you're gonna have no trouble whatsoever with the movement on that game. I mean, there will be those issues every so often, but they're so rare compared to the kind of movement issues you encounter in Resident Evil 2 Remake. And speaking of issues, here's G3 Birkin. A boss that is considered by many to be the best boss of Resident Evil 2 Remake, but that judgment is made by a bunch of people who don't understand how to define a good boss. This boss fight is such a dragged out boss fight, he has such a simplistic moveset, and at any moment, he can screw you with a very awkward pattern, and he has some really trashy hitboxes that can occur randomly during this fight. And fighting him as Claire is so much better than fighting him as Leon. For one reason. So, you saw it just then, when he was trying to pick up that canister. Claire can actually knife upward, so she can hit that eyeball effectively when he goes for these canisters. Leon can't do that. So, Leon is forced to rely upon this very awkward method of getting G3 Birkin to do his slam move, and then angling his swing in such a way that it somehow clips through G3 Birkin's skin so that he can hit the eyeball on his back. And that's what you're gonna have to deal with when you're playing as Leon. However, the one good thing about playing as Leon is that he has a lot more leniency with how many knives he is allowed to use against G3 Birkin, because his final boss only requires one knife. However, because of the fact that Claire's final boss requires 2 knives to actually kill it, I have to be so cautious with how I deal with G3 Birkin, and my cautious approach to dealing with G3 Birkin is to only focus on his weak spots, because he does take damage on his whole entire body, but the damage it gives you is so little. You only do 25 damage to G3 Birkin when you're hitting his skin. When you're hitting his weak spots, it does 47 damage, and that's all I'm going to do for G3 Birkin. I'm just going to mainly prioritize his weak spots after he does a very specific move, and it's going to drag out this fight for quite a while. But just to give you an idea as to what you're supposed to do when you're dealing with G3 Birkin, for the first phase, you've got to bait out either his poking move or his overhead slash, and then you've got to stand in front of him so that he does his slam so you can hit the eyeball on his arm. And then when you're trying to hit the eyeball on his back, wait until he goes for a canister and then try to knife him. And then you can immediately get rid of the eyeball on his leg at the start. For the second phase, you need to mainly stay at a distance when it comes to dealing with Birkin. Because Birkin will mainly do the running attack, the jump attack, or he will do the combo attack. But he can also do a fourth move, which is very fast. And what I do when it comes to dealing with that move is I try to take it out of the cycle of moves that he can potentially do on his next move. So you'll see moments in the second phase where I stand directly in front of him after he does his combo attack so that I can get him to do the close range attack. Because when he does the close range attack, it is completely out of the cycle of possible moves that he can do for his next move. So he's going to mainly do his running attack or his slam attack, and that's how you want to deal with it for the second phase. Now for the third phase, this is where it's going to drag out for a very long time, but I only ever punish a select few moves. Like, that move there, if you're out of his line of sight, he will do this running attack, which you gotta run away from, because it's very fast. And when he does that running attack, I immediately try to hit his chest, and I'm only going to prioritize his chest, because if I try to hit any other body part, my knife's durability will be very low, and I'll burn through knives very quickly before I have a chance to preserve 2 knives for G4 Birkin. And then there's also that combo move. That combo move is another move I punish, and once again, every time he does the combo move, I stand in front of him so that he does his close range attack that he did just then, so I can take it out of the cycle. I'm never going to stand behind him when he does the running attack. I'm only going to stand behind him when he does the jump attack. This is the pattern he likes to do. He likes to do running attack, then jump attack, stand behind him, then he's going to do this attack right here, which is very fast, and then you got to run towards him, and then he's either going to do 3 moves. He's either going to do the combo move, he's going to do the close range attack, or he's going to do this flail attack, which is not too bad so long as you run to the left and you circle him. There's a close range attack. I'm taking it out of the cycle. And it's very simple. There's not much I really need to explain here. Just every time he does the close range attack, always run away from him. Because on the third phase, he mainly does the running attack. And that's what makes the third phase so much easier than the other phases. It's the fact that he does that running attack a lot. I mean, the other phases are very easy. This whole entire fight is so easy. And the fact that it's dragged out so much just completely destroys the kind of enjoyment you would have if this fight was actually short. The way I view easy fights is that if they are easy for a harder difficulty, they need to be short, so that it doesn't feel like it's getting so repetitive, and it doesn't get so boring after a while. But with the amount of time it is going to take me just to do this very cautious method... Oh, by the way, right there. That flail move, you gotta run to the left. And always get away from him. And make sure he doesn't do the flare move when he's in the corners, because if he does the flare move when he's in the corners, and you yourself are in the corners, it's going to be very hard to get away from him. And also, when he does the flail attack, and you are at mid-range to him, he will not do the running attack. He will do this very fast slam attack that you've got to run away from. So that's why I specifically say that you need to make sure you are very far away from Birkin when he does this flail attack, so that he always does the running attack. And the running attack is so easy to get past. He's very slow to do it, and you see the way he changes his posture? That's how you know that he's about to do the running attack. So, bear that in mind when you're dealing with that move. And that's all you really need to know about the moves that G3 Birkin can do, because his moveset is so simplistic. And at least they're very predictable. But I guess that's part of the fact that this game is designed for knife only. Because of the fact that this game is designed for knife only, they have to make the moves a lot more predictable, right? Well, they actually don't, because, you know, Jack Baker from the End of Zoe DLC, you know, you fought him fist only, and his moveset was not predictable. You had no idea what moves he was going to do. He was very fast. But no, they couldn't do that with this game. But you know another reason why that's the case with this fight? Why it's so simplistic and why his moveset is so predictable? It's because of the fact that Claire can't do anything, Leon can't do anything. Like, the characters are so limited in what they can do when it comes to avoiding attacks, compared to Resident Evil 7, where you can crouch, you have the counter system to your advantage, you have the flinch animations to your advantage, you have these systems in play in Resident Evil 7 on the End of Zoe DLC that force the developers to make Jack Baker less predictable and very fast, and actually possible to do fist only. But the fact that they abandoned a lot of the things that Resident Evil 7 introduced caused this game to revert back to the simplistic design that the older Resident Evil games were known for. And I mean it when I say they're very simplistic in design. If you haven't seen what people do when it comes to knifing like G2 Birkin or G3 Birkin on the original version of Resident Evil 2, they only ever bait out one attack, and that's it. They either back up for G2 Birkin when it comes to baiting out his horizontal strike, or with G3 Birkin, they just run underneath the overhead slash that G3 Birkin can do on the original version of Resident Evil 2. And they were very simplistic in design, and they were so simple. And this is just reverting back to something like that, only he does a little bit more with his moves compared to just one move. But should I be grateful for that? I don't know. All I gotta say is that this fight is just too long. It's gonna take me 13 minutes just to kill G3 Birkin. And why the heck should an easy fight like this drag on for 13 minutes? I'm gonna practically be like Ellen0325 and just put in the sleeping emoji when it comes to judging a section like this. Because that's the kind of emoji that Ellen would put when it comes to a section from Resident Evil 6 that's very boring. And it's no different with me. This is so boring. It's ridiculously boring, and I'm just so glad I didn't have to waste time hearing all these sound effects that were playing, because, like I said, my audio was completely turned off. I was just listening to music, and that was the only thing keeping me sane during this whole entire fight. All I gotta say, though, is when Resident Evil 3 Remake comes out, I hope that Nemesis is nothing like this. I hope Nemesis is going to be something equivalent to that of Jack Baker from the End of Zoe DLC, where he's actually challenging, but it's actually possible to do these runs in a way that's actually interesting, and that they don't feel so dragged out. Because who the heck thinks this is appealing? Oh wait, the people who believe that dragging out a scenario longer than usual somehow makes them feel special. It's those kind of people that irk me to no end. Just to counter this stupid statement, I'm going to present an analogy. Dragging out scenarios is no different to refusing to edit a live stream. Refusing to edit a live stream to remove pointless deaths or to remove long durations of vapid gameplay is not something that makes you special, it's something that makes you lazy. You know, SHAREfactory brought up a really nice tangent when he was talking about DSP Gaming doing something like this. DSP Gaming doesn't edit his live streams at all. DSP Gaming's live streams are like 8 hours long, and you would think 8 hours long would mean that his gameplay is amazing. It isn't. A lot of what he showcases in his unedited live streams are just pointless deaths and vapid gameplay. That's all he shows. And he's not putting in the time and effort necessary to make the live streams short and concise so that people can actually enjoy it. Like, as such a situation is to laziness, dragging out a scenario is something similar to that. And that is the exact reason why I cannot appreciate this boss fight. This boss fight is the personification of the mindset of those particular individuals who believe in such a crass statement. This boss fight is almost as bad as Salazar from Resident Evil 4. If you haven't seen my walkthrough of Resident Evil 4, Salazar is just a fight that drags out for such a long time, and I went into that boss fight with no rocket launcher because I couldn't fit the rocket launcher into my inventory, and it was just taking such a long time. And they built up Salazar a lot in Resident Evil 4, and Salazar was such an interesting character, but he's given the worst possible ending to his character. By the end of that boss fight, I was left completely devastated. I was so disappointed, I was so mad that that whole entire boss fight got past Q&A. And I wonder if the same QA testers who playtested that boss fight in Resident Evil 4 playtested all of Resident Evil 2 Remake. Because this whole entire game has left me so devastated, disappointed, and mad. Almost on par with what Salazar left me in. Oh, by the way, right there, my knife broke. And I could not sprint or do anything. So, if you end up breaking your knife, and an attack animation is about to head towards you, you have no way of dodging it, because you can't sprint. Why is that fair? How did that get past Q&A? How did new Capcom decide this was an okay feature? I have been screwed by this particular flaw in the system so many times during the G3 and G4 Birkin boss fights. Is this really necessary, Capcom? Do you really need to artificially inflate the difficulty by lazily letting such systems fly by Q&A? It almost reminds me of Resident Evil 6, where the enemies could move during the cutscene so they could ambush you. To avoid this issue in Resident Evil 6, you had to know when the cutscenes would trigger to place yourself in the correct spot, or you had to mash the dodge button like crazy. Like, you shouldn't have to adjust your methods so they can accommodate for faults that should have been properly adjusted before the game released. It's the same case here. Because of this nonsensical problem, I have to try to knife Birkin during his running attack animation so I can break my knife without any risk of damage. I get that this is Resident Evil's first time implementing a durability system for the knife, but why would you put such a system in? Like, logically, it makes sense not to put that in. You're giving us a health system. I can see on the bottom right corner that my knife is in the red state, so I know it's about to break. You even have a health system in the inventory system. Those two features are perfectly fine. Why do we need that animation, Capcom? This new team at Capcom. There's one word that I can properly use to describe the new Capcom. Enigma. That's what they are. They're an enigma. There is literally no logic to what this new team at Capcom does, or how they choose to implement these kind of design choices. Like, did they not look back at the previous Resident Evil games? Did they not look back at the previous Resident Evil games mechanically? Or maybe they actually did, and they just thought, we'll just look at it superficially. They probably looked at the previous Resident Evil games, much like their superficial fan base, and thought it was okay to take advice from them. And this is apparent because in the development video for Resident Evil 2 Remake, they said that, "We all appreciate your comments, they help build our confidence." But I don't see how they can look at the comments of their own fan base and say that builds their confidence. If you guys had seen the kind of comments that people left on Hideki Kamiya's Twitter page when they were afraid of the idea of an over-the-shoulder perspective for Resident Evil 2 Remake, They were so harsh against Hideki Kamiya. And Hideki Kamiya responded saying that you guys need to give Over the Shoulder a chance, but that only made them retaliate a lot more. But that's the fan base that this new team at Capcom is looking at? If that is the case, then it's definitely apparent why such systems, where, for instance, you can't pull your knife out instantly when you have your flashlight out, or you can't move when you're inspecting your broken knife. Like, it's no wonder those systems got past Q&A, because Capcom wasn't even looking at that. And because of that, people got pretty bored of Resident Evil 2 Remake and they decided to resort to mods. And Resident Evil 2 Remake is completely lost in mods right now. Doesn't even feel like a Resident Evil game with the amount of mods that have come out. The amount of nude mods, the amount of alternative outfits for their characters, the amount of different changes they make to the environments, the amount of changes they made to Mr. X. Like, where's the identity of this game? It's definitely clear this game wasn't built to last to the enjoyment of people if they have to make mods for the game. If you have to make mods for a game, then it's clear that that game did not do a very good job of giving a lasting impression to the fan base. But I'm gonna just pause on this tangent because we're moving on to G4 Birkin. We have 2 knives. We can easily beat G4 Birkin. I'm still amazed that I struggled on G4 Birkin because I was doing my strategy all wrong. I made the mistake of not looking at my knife-only video of G4 Birkin. Because I made the mistake of trying to run on the right-hand side of G4 Birkin whenever he did an attack, and that got me hit a lot. You have to run on the left-hand side of G4 Birkin every time he does an attack, so that he doesn't hit you. And compared to G3 Birkin, G4 Birkin feels like a blessing. He is a lot of fun to fight, he's so consistent in what he does, and he doesn't drag out like G3 Birkin does. If G3 Birkin felt exactly the same as G4 Birkin when it comes to how long the fight should actually be, I would probably enjoy G3 Birkin a lot more, but as it stands, that fight is just horrendous. Most of the fights on this game are pretty bad, and like I said, only 3 bosses on this game actually impressed me. G2 Birkin, G4 Birkin, and Final Tyrant. But this right here, we have to dodge these ivies. There are 2 ivies in this room, and they will drop down from the ceiling, as you're going to see right there. See the vines that are shaking? That indicates an ivy is dropping down. The strategy that I use here is kind of random, and it does work most of the time, but then there are other times where one of the ivies can actually move towards you as you're climbing down the ladder. So, what I'm trying to do right here is I'm trying to freeze the ivies by going through that door and then coming back into this room. I don't think this is how it works, but as you'll notice, the ivies aren't here. And if you want to do a more baller strategy, you can try to knife the ivies as they're rising up off the ground. Only one of them. The second one you can just completely circle around, because that other ivy will not get up for quite a while if you choose to engage with them. It's just you gotta deal with the 2 random factors of the knife's awkward hit detection, and the fact that the ivy doesn't flinch when you're knifing him when he's rising up off the ground. But I managed to get past that room, and then I dodged that flaming zombie, which I think that zombie dies in 1 hit, because he actually dies over time. But I wouldn't want to test it out, because I had failed this whole entire laboratory section so many times that I was not willing to take any chances. But once we're over here, we just need to pick up the plugs, and we've got to place them into the slot, and then the fight will begin. Now, a couple things to note about G4 Birkin. This fight is not damage-based. This fight is based on the number of eyeballs that you destroy. A lot of people get this wrong, and they end up wasting a ton of ammo on G4 Birkin. And I made this mistake in my blind playthrough, because I didn't understand how the fight worked. And you see the minigun right over there? You can choose to use that on your first playthrough. It is effective, but people recommend that you use the knife and the grenades. And I 100% agree with them. The knife and the grenades are really, really good at eliminating multiple eyeballs in one go. But, like I said, you need 2 knives. If you don't have 2 knives, you will never be able to kill G4 Birkin. So at the beginning, he will always do this combo here. Run on the right-hand side, and then just wait for him to finish his animation. He will always do the running attack after this animation. So just run to the side, and then he will bounce off the wall, and you can use this opportunity to land him some hits. Always knife him twice when he's in a flinch animation, and then you've got to, once again, hug the right-hand side of where he is, and he will never hit you. Now, you've got to watch what he does after doing that, and he's doing the move I need right here, because every single time he does this move, he always tries to climb up on the wall, so you can use this opportunity to get a lot of knife hits in. Well, I mainly recommend doing either 1 or 2 hits, just in case he decides to deviate from pattern, but I can't remember any moment where he has decided to deviate from the pattern. But still express caution when it comes to attacking him during that flinch animation. And now right here, when he climbs up the wall, he always jumps onto the train first before jumping on you, so you gotta move at the right moment. And just knife him twice. And once that's done, run away, because he will always do the combo again. And we're gonna repeat the exact same strategy we did previously. And if you're low on durability for your knife right now, I recommend swapping to your other knife. You do not want to be put into a position where you're going to get caught in the knife breaking animation. And once again, the loop is working perfectly. I'm going to watch what he does. He's doing the move I need. I'm going to back up. And the moment he stops his animation, I'm going to immediately run towards him. And I'm going to knife him once. I choose to knife him once because I don't have enough durability on my knife to continue knifing him. And also because I'm thinking he might deviate from pattern, but he's still sticking to the pattern I need. Now, on the second time he's going to do the jump attack, he will try to jump directly on you, so you have to move. Basically, every single time he does the jump attack at an odd time, he's always going to jump on the train first before attacking you. Every even time, he's going to try to jump directly on you. And you see this? See what I mean? You see what I mean when I say this boss fight is so much better than G3 Birkin because everything in it is consistent? I mean, the only part that's not consistent is what move he decides to do afterwards, because right now he's not doing the... Oh no, he's doing the move right now. There is a point in this fight where instead of doing this move, he decides to do a close range slash, and if he does any other move aside from this move, I never punish him, because I'm always afraid that he's going to not do the climbing ability right here. And he's going to jump on the train again. I'm just going to run to the right at just the right moment. Never, ever run towards him too quickly after he lands, because you'll be put into a flinch animation thanks to the lingering hitbox on that particular jump of his. And once again, he's doing the exact same looping technique. And we're going to do the exact same thing again. If only G3 Birkin was as good as this. I feel like this boss fight is more dependent on skill, and you're not having to be so reliant upon patience. G3 Birkin is all about patience. I just don't think there's a lot of skill necessary in that fight. I mean, the only skillful part that's really required with G3 Birkin is just knowing how to interpret what he does for each phase, understanding his patterns, and understanding how to punish them. But, you know, with the fact that Claire has to be so passive with how she's attacking G3 Birkin, you're not really afforded a lot of opportunities to do anything skillful, because doing skillful tactics against G3 Birkin is going to cost you a lot of durability on your knife. The only time you're ever going to really do anything skillful against G3 Birkin is probably when you're playing as Leon, because as I've already mentioned before, Leon is afforded a lot more leniency with the amount of knives that he's allowed to use. And also, the fact that G4 Birkin is not a fight that drags on like G3 Birkin does is another reason why I like this fight. I feel like the fact that this doesn't drag on gives more of an impact to just how memorable this fight is. Plus, like, the self-destruct sequence is counting down. They obviously have to make the fight short to accommodate the self-destruct sequence. If there is one famous phrase that I would love to cite just to describe this fight, it would be that brevity is the soul of wit. Which, if you don't know, refers to jokes. A joke is only good if it's not being used repeatedly. If it's being used repeatedly, then it just loses all its meaning, and it just loses the kind of impact it was supposed to have on the person receiving the joke. You know, that's pretty much supporting my views as to what dragged out scenarios are, and why I cannot support kill-all runs, and why I cannot support anything of the sort. And thankfully this is not the case with this boss fight. And right here, G4 Birkin is dead. He just has to do this suicide attack before he eventually dies out. So just wait him out and you'll be fine. And you will have achieved the S+ rank if you've been following this walkthrough. And I'd like to make a correction in this video. I said before in my first video that you have to beat the game in under an hour and a half for the A scenario in order to get the S+ rank, while also doing less than 3 saves. But that's actually wrong. You have to beat the game with less than 3 saves, but you can beat it in less than 2.5 hours. So I had plenty of time to get the S+ rank. And before I conclude the commentary, I'm just going to showcase a bunch of bloopers from my lab run. And these bloopers showcase the objective issues with this game. So right here, this is a movement issue. I tried to do the sprint counter, but I fail, and I did not mean to run into the zombie. The game did that for me because of how loose the movement on this game is. And then right here, I tried to run past the zombie while he's on the staircase, but of course zombies move faster on staircases than you do, so he catches up to me. And then the same thing's going to happen again in the next video, where I tried to run past the zombie because he's far to the left, but he's going to catch up to me. Even when I'm doing the aiming trick, I can't get away from him. How is that fair? That's really dumb. Oh, same thing again. Like, this is from my original attempt at trying to find a strategy. And this is when I tried to run down the staircase, but look at that. Again, I can't get away from him because he runs faster on the staircases than I do. It's so dumb. And then this next part, this is a great example of how inconsistent the limb dismemberment system is on this game. I should have been able to chop up his leg earlier than that, but for some reason it didn't work. And once again, it's not going to work. How has his left leg not been chopped up at this point? Doesn't make any sense. It's so inconsistent. Oh, same thing again. I'm going to try to run past the zombie when he's on the staircase, but he's going to catch up to me, which is bullcrap. Did that even look like he touched me? It looked like he touched me with his fingertips. And he just pulled me in. That's how bullcrap the grabs can be at times. That's just the case with a lot of grabs in games. Grabs are very vacuumous in how they work, so the enemies don't even have to touch you with their full body. They just need to touch you with their fingertips in order to grab you. And once again, another inconsistent damage moment. That guy should have been dead, but he's still alive somehow. And I only needed one more hit just to take him out. And here's a really bad hitbox. Look at that. Didn't even touch me. And I got hit. Remember when I said this boss had a lot of bad hitboxes? That's one of them. And then right there, that Ivy unfortunately did a grab that had a lot of range because I was at his side. And the enemies on this game have a lot of range on their grabs when you're behind them or you're to their sides. And once again, the woman screwed me over there. And here comes this moment right here where my knife breaks and I can't move. So I unfortunately take a hit. Kudos to you, Capcom, for this really awesome feature. Oh wait, no, it's a trash feature, and it shouldn't exist. Once again, same thing happened to me again, where this guy gets increased range on his grab because I was behind him. Which is so dumb. And this is bullcrap right here. I do the grab escape on this Ivy, but then the next Ivy grabs me again when I'm in the animation. That's bullcrap. Absolute bullcrap. And the same thing's going to happen again in the next video, and that is the end of the bloopers. That doesn't represent the full amount of issues I experienced. I experienced way more than what I have already shown in this video. But all of these issues together further showcase the objective issues that plague this game. But anyway, that is the end of my Resident Evil 2 Remake, Hardcore Difficulty, Claire 1 scenario, no damage, knife only, S+ walkthrough. Stay tuned for Leon's campaign. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.